I, Margaret Wilson, stood by the window of my home in the suburbs of Grand Rapids, basking in the soft autumn sunlight, eagerly awaiting the arrival of my son's family. Even at 62, I found myself fidgeting, tapping my toes on the floor, a habit from my teaching days. It had been 3 months since I last saw my grandson Ethan. My heart raced at the thought of how much a 6-year-old boy could grow in just 3 months. As I glanced around the living room, my eyes fell on the mementos adorning the mantelpiece. A faded mug inscribed with "Best Teacher Ever." Thank you notes from former students. This room, filled with 35 years of teaching memories, was now enveloped in silence. Outside the window, the leaves of the planted maple swayed in the autumn breeze, signaling the changing of seasons. The doorbell rang, making my heart skip a beat. I tried to calm myself with a deep breath, but the joy of seeing my grandson was overwhelming. As I opened the door, there stood my son David, his wife Emily, and my adorable grandson Ethan. "Mom, it's been a while," David embraced me. His voice was warm, but I couldn't help noticing the dark circles under his eyes, telling of his recent work stress. Emily greeted me kindly too, though she seemed a bit tense. As I accepted the bouquet they handed me, I responded, "Oh, my favorite lilies." The moment I turned my gaze to Ethan, my heart melted. "Hello, Grandma's treasure. My, how you've grown." Ethan just nodded slightly, without his usual energetic greeting. "Is something wrong?" But now was the time to celebrate the family reunion. I pushed my worries aside and invited everyone in. "Come on in. David and Emily, you must be tired. I'll make some coffee." As I led them to the living room, I carefully observed their expressions. David's shoulders were slightly slumped. Emily's smile seemed a bit forced. And Ethan, usually chatty, he was oddly quiet today. As I prepared coffee, I watched my family through the window. A mix of joy at the reunion and an inexplicable unease filled me. The next few days should be fun, but what was this indescribable tension lingering in the family? Taking a deep breath as I carried the tray with cups, I reassured myself. No matter what, I would support this family. With that thought, I put on a smile and headed to the living room. After cleaning up from dinner, we gathered in the living room. Outside the window, the evening sky was beginning to turn a deep purple. The soft glow of the table lamp gently illuminated the room as each family member settled into their relaxation time. David sank deep into the large armchair, his work tablet resting on his lap. Emily sat at the edge of the sofa, occasionally sighing as she scrolled through her smartphone. Both seemed unable to fully switch off from work mode. "How about some dessert?" "I baked an apple pie," I offered. David and Emily looked up, showing tired smiles. "Thanks, Mom. But right now." David's words trailed off. "Yes, Margaret. We'll have some later," Emily continued. I felt a little disappointed but nodded in understanding. Turning my gaze to Ethan, I saw him sitting on the floor, hugging a large teddy bear. It was the one I had given him last Christmas. "Ethan, would you like to have some pie with Grandma?" I invited. Suddenly, Ethan leaned forward, moving closer to me. His eyes were shining as if trying to convey something. "Grandma, look at this." There was an urgency in Ethan's voice that I hadn't heard before. He held out the teddy bear with both hands, trying to show me something. Usually, Ethan would be eager to show off new toys or books, but this stuffed animal had been his favorite since last year. Had something special happened? "What is it, Ethan?" I asked gently. "Look here." Ethan pointed to the bear's back. However, I couldn't see anything unusual. "David, Emily, Ethan wants to show us something," I called out to my son and daughter-in-law. But they were absorbed in their own conversation. "Well, this project deadline." David's voice. "I still need to review the materials for tomorrow's meeting," Emily replied. I frowned slightly at their behavior. Work is important, of course. But family time is even more precious. Especially when Ethan seemed to have something important to say. "Ethan, can you tell Grandma a bit more?" I spoke gently, meeting his gaze. Ethan opened his mouth to speak but suddenly hesitated, biting his lip. Then, he insistently pushed the stuffed animal towards me again. This behavior struck me as very odd. Usually, Ethan would clearly express what he wanted to say. I gently placed my hand on Ethan's forehead, checking for a fever. He wasn't warm. But his eyes held something, a plea of sorts. It seemed like he wanted to convey something important but couldn't find the right words. "Ethan, it's okay. Grandma's here. You can tell me anything." At my words, Ethan seemed to relax his shoulders just a bit. But he still couldn't bring himself to speak. At this point, I couldn't understand the meaning behind Ethan's behavior. I only knew that my grandson was desperately trying to communicate something. And it wasn't just a child's whim. Outside the window, the sun had completely set. Inside the room, only the mysterious air surrounding Ethan's stuffed animal quietly lingered. Even after night fell and the family had retired to their rooms, I couldn't shake Ethan's unusual behavior from my mind. Lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, I replayed the day's events. Especially the image of Ethan desperately trying to show me that stuffed animal was burned into my eyelids. Around 1 a.m., I finally got up. "I just can't sleep, I'm so worried," I muttered to myself. Slipping on my slippers, I quietly made my way to Ethan's room. I tiptoed carefully down the hallway, trying not to let the floorboards creak. As I gently opened the door to Ethan's room, moonlight streamed through the window, softly illuminating my sleeping grandson. The stuffed animal in question was placed beside his bed. Taking a deep breath, I carefully picked it up. Back in the living room, I turned on the table lamp. In the soft light, I began to examine the stuffed animal meticulously. Every touch brought back warm memories of last Christmas. But now, I couldn't shake the feeling that this teddy bear held some secret. As my fingers traced over the surface of the stuffed animal, I felt something odd on its back. Looking closer, I noticed a small zipper cleverly hidden along the fur. Could it be? I thought as I nervously unzipped it. Inside was a carefully folded piece of paper, covered in Ethan's childish handwriting. My heart started racing as I began to unfold and read it. The letter, which began with "Dear Grandma," made my heart pound even faster. The contents detailed Ethan's experiences of bullying at school. It painfully conveyed how he was being harassed daily by certain children. What surprised me even more was that it also mentioned his parents' work situation and recent changes in the family atmosphere. "Daddy and Mommy are always tired and arguing. I don't want to make them more worried." When I read this line, I felt a tightening in my chest. Ethan, worried about his parents' work stress, couldn't bring himself to consult them, fearing he would worsen the already tense atmosphere at home. And the last line struck me hard. "Grandma, you always know what to do. Please help me." These words conveyed Ethan's trust in my experience and calmness. He probably expected that I, with my years of experience as a teacher, could offer appropriate advice. After finishing the letter, I felt a deep shock along with a strong sense of purpose. I closed my eyes and took several deep breaths. I mustn't panic. I need to respond calmly and carefully. "Ethan, Grandma will definitely help you," I whispered softly. Looking at the clock, it was already past 2 a.m. I couldn't take action right away. First, I needed to calm my own feelings and think about how to approach this tomorrow. I returned the stuffed animal to its original state and quietly placed it back in Ethan's room. I gave a soft kiss on my sleeping grandson's cheek. "It's okay, you're not alone," I whispered. Back in my room, I sat on the bed, gazing at the moon outside the window. In my mind, I began to organize how to handle this situation. Protecting Ethan and improving communication within the whole family, these were the top priorities. From tomorrow, we'll solve this one step at a time, I told myself. And with a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in a long time, I slowly closed my eyes. The morning sun streamed through the window as I woke up. The clock showed 6 a.m. I felt like I had barely slept after last night's shocking discovery. Getting out of bed, I headed to the kitchen. As I brewed coffee, the contents of Ethan's message once again weighed heavily on my heart. With a hot coffee in hand, I stood by the living room window. Gazing at the mist-shrouded garden, memories of bullying cases I had dealt with during my 35-year teaching career raced through my mind like a whirlwind. One incident from about 20 years ago stood out particularly. Back then, serious bullying had occurred in my class, causing the victim to refuse to come to school. The whole school worked together, having multiple discussions with the bullies, and eventually reached a resolution. That experience might be helpful in Ethan's current situation. Taking a sip of coffee, I let out a sigh. Come to think of it, the volunteer work I started at the local community center after retirement might also be useful in this situation. The interactions with children from various families there had greatly helped me understand the problems faced by modern children. But it's not wise to handle this alone, I reminded myself. I needed to consult someone I could trust. As I thought this, the face of my former colleague Sarah Thompson came to mind. She's still an active teacher, passionately working on bullying issues. Looking at the clock, it was still before 7 a.m. I decided to call Sarah before the family woke up. As I picked up my cell phone and searched for Sarah's number, I felt my heart racing with tension. "Hello, Margaret. What's the matter so early?" Sarah's voice came through. "Sarah, I'm sorry for calling so early. I have an urgent matter to discuss." I began to explain the situation concisely. Sarah listened carefully, occasionally asking questions and sharing information about current anti-bullying measures in schools. As I listened, I was once again struck by the complexity of the problems facing today's children. Cyberbullying through social media, diverse family environments, pressure for academic achievement, all these factors intertwined in ways we never imagined in our time. "Margaret, we need to handle this carefully. But I'm sure you can deal with it well." Sarah's words of encouragement gave me a bit of courage. After hanging up, I looked out the window to see the morning mist starting to clear, signaling the start of a new day. Before the family wakes up, I need to think about how to broach this topic. Especially with David and Emily, they need to understand Ethan's feelings. Taking a deep breath, I calmed my mind. One step at a time, but steadily, I told myself. Then, I opened the phone book and started looking for the school's number. As dusk fell, I was in the kitchen preparing dinner, carefully choosing my words in my mind. Tonight, we needed to have an important conversation as a family. As the aroma of a savory lasagna wafted from the oven, I heard the front door open. "We're home," David and Emily's tired voices echoed. "Welcome back." I took a deep breath and headed to the living room. After dinner, we settled on the sofa. Ethan sat next to me, looking anxious. "Everyone, I have something important to discuss," I began quietly. I carefully explained about the bullying problem at Ethan's school and how he had been trying to face it alone. I felt a pang in my chest as I saw David and Emily's faces cloud with surprise and regret. "Why didn't you tell us?" Emily's voice trembled. Ethan answered in a small voice, "Dad and Mom always seemed so busy. I didn't want to worry you." At those words, David and Emily's expressions crumbled. David hugged his son and apologized, "I'm so sorry. We were so caught up with work that we didn't notice your feelings." We talked late into the night about contacting the school, setting up meetings with teachers, and concrete ways to protect Ethan. At the same time, we affirmed the importance of praising Ethan's courageous actions and nurturing his confidence. "Ethan, you're truly brave," I gently stroked my grandson's cheek. "But from now on, don't bear this burden alone. Remember, we're all on your side." David and Emily firmly vowed to reassess their work-life balance. "Let's make time to spend together as a family every night," Emily suggested, and we all nodded in agreement. As the night wore on, Ethan fell asleep looking a bit more at ease. We three adults continued our conversation around the kitchen table, sipping herbal tea. "Mom, thank you so much," David squeezed my hand. "If it weren't for you, we might have taken much longer to notice this problem." Emily nodded, her eyes welling up. "We need to do better." Outside the window, the full moon shone gently. "The road ahead won't be easy." But through this night's dialogue, I could feel that our family bond had grown stronger. Several weeks after our meeting with the school, on a chilly autumn morning, we gathered in the auditorium of Ethan's school. It was a special assembly called by the principal. I sat between David and Emily, gently holding the shoulder of a slightly nervous Ethan. The principal took the stage and began speaking quietly. Today is an important day for our school community. Recently, a serious bullying issue came to light. However, thanks to the brave action of one student, we've been given a chance to change. I felt Ethan stiffen beside me. The principal continued. Ethan Wilson, please come up to the stage. As a murmur spread through the auditorium, Ethan stood up on shaky legs. I gently pushed his back and gave him an encouraging smile. Ethan's courage has revamped our school's anti-bullying program. His actions have touched many hearts. At those words, several boys stood up in one corner of the auditorium. They were the former bullies. They bowed their heads and walked towards Ethan. The boy who seemed to be their leader spoke with a trembling voice, "Ethan, we're really sorry. We hurt you. But from your courage, we learned the importance of kindness. Can you forgive us?" The auditorium fell silent. All eyes were on Ethan. He hesitated for a moment but then slowly nodded. "Yes, I forgive you. But promise never to bully anyone again, okay?" At that moment, a huge round of applause broke out. I wiped away tears as I exchanged glances with David. His eyes were moist too. The principal explained the new anti-bullying program and called for cooperation from all students. When each of us has a heart that cares for others, that's what makes this school a wonderful place. After the assembly, our family huddled around Ethan in a group hug. "Your courage changed everyone," I kissed my grandson's cheek. David and Emily looked at Ethan proudly. "From now on, we promise to listen to you more," Emily vowed. That night, we held a barbecue party in the backyard. Under the starry sky, family and neighbors gathered to celebrate Ethan's courage. He seemed a bit embarrassed but definitely showed a confident expression. 1 year later, in the summer, Ethan had moved on to middle school and was adapting well to his new environment. He now serves as a member of the school's anti-bullying committee and acts as a counselor for younger students. David and Emily kept their promise and reassessed their work-life balance. They decided that every Friday night would be family night, spent watching movies or playing board games together. I started conducting anti-bullying workshops at the local community center. I found new fulfillment in using my experiences to help other families and children. One evening, as Ethan and I were swaying in the hammock in the backyard, I suddenly asked him, "Do you have any regrets about what happened back then?" Ethan thought for a moment before answering. "No, I don't regret it. That experience made me stronger, and it brought our family closer together. Plus, I learned how important it is to forgive people." His words made my chest feel warm. Through the window, I could see David and Emily laughing as they prepared dinner in the kitchen. This family bond, and Ethan's growth. It all started with that message hidden in a small stuffed animal. I hugged my grandson tightly and whispered in my heart, "No matter what challenges come our way, we'll be all right. Because we have strong hearts that care for each other." In the twilight sky,